Are you seeing my tweets up there? I can't read those and draw at the same time. That's not fair. Okay, I better stop before something embarrassing gets up there. Okay, I was so excited to be able to do that. To draw for you guys on stage. It's going to be on a video, and maybe somebody tweets it too, I don't know. Because for me, sharing and collaborating has been the thread throughout my artistic life. It's something that has been very important to me, and I'll explain to you why I decided to talk about that today. My story is that I grew up during the civil rights movement, the second wave of feminism, the assassinations, the Watergate, the Vietnam War, all that stuff. Lived in Washington, and I was a young girl, very, very shy and terrified. And I drew to try to understand the world around me, and I think I also drew to try to make people around me happy. My mother gave me a book of cartoons when I was very young. I was drawing already, and I just ate it up. James Thurber, I don't know if you guys know his work, but I started tracing his drawings, and I was sold. This was my life. This is what I wanted to do, is draw and make people happy. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, was that cartoons are about pleasing people. In a way, in many ways, at least for me, they were about pleasing people. And they're also about transformation, changing yourself and adapting to the world around you. So what is a cartoon? Let's just start from the basics. And it's like Cartoon 101, not really, but anyway, a cartoon is an image. Basically, it's an image. And it's words. Very often it's words, sometimes it's not words. And it's an idea. So it's actually a BIF thing. In essence, it's a BIF thing. It's like a random collision of usual suspects is what a cartoon is. And cartoonists are like sponges. We soak up the world around us. We listen and we watch, and we're just, I've been doing this 30 years. I do this instinctively. I'm aware of the world around me. And we cannot do the same thing over and over and over again. We have to constantly change the cartoon, change the tradition. It's a tradition that has to morph over time. Cartoons are little innovations. Every single time you do a cartoon, it's an innovation. It's something new based on a form that is traditional. At least in my case, the New Yorker cartoon. Cartoons are also little mini rebellions. They take what we know and they twist it and abstract off of it and innovate off of it to make something new. So cartoons are innovations as well. Rebellions. And cartoons are also collaborations. That's not my marriage, no. Actually, it is. I'm married to a cartoonist. They're collaborations not in the sense that you might think like there's a writer and an artist working together to create an idea, although that does happen. What I'm talking about collaborations is a broader thing, in that I collaborate with the world around me. I collaborate with what's going on in the world, and I collaborate with the viewer. Cartoons depend on the viewer. We depend on you guys. I depend on you guys to get what I'm doing and understand what I'm doing and laugh at it, hopefully. So what do you do if you work in a medium that's like I do in the New Yorker cartoon, which is a very well-established 90-year-old medium. It's a 90-year-old art form, And how do you collaborate off of it? And I want to talk about the New Yorker for a second because it's a great example of a magazine, of an artistic thing. A lawyer back in 1925 called it a living thing. The New Yorker's a living thing that adapted to change over time and has lasted a long time. I mean, this is a Peter Arno cartoon. Can you read it? It says, "Well, back to the old drawing board." It's a very famous cartoon. The founder of the New Yorker, Harold Ross and Jane Grant, they were married, founded the New Yorker, and they wanted to have a magazine that was reacting to established humor at the time, which was more like Will Rogers type humor. They wanted to create a new, pithy kind of urban youth magazine, and that's what they did. And they brought all the best talent in New York together to create this magazine. And you had people like Peter Arno, and Barbara Sherman was one of the first early women cartoonists in 1925. And she, her style is much different. But she was using her own way to reflect what was going on in the city at that time. She was responding to her environment, collaborating with her viewers, collaborating with the world around her. And this is Misha Richter. Later on in the 60s, he's collaborating with the viewers as well, like talking to us about our anxieties of the changing world, sharing with us. And Reginald Marsh, earlier, is also talking about social issues in the country at the time, and he's taking that's an example of a cartoon where you look at that and you expect them to say one thing and then they say another. And then, of course, there's Charles Adams, whose voice you know very well, as he's sharing with his readers this very macabre, bizarre sense of humor. And Michael Maslin, who is my husband, he creates cartoons that talk to the viewer about interpersonal relationships. So he collaborates with us and talks to us about how we conduct our lives with our loved ones. And then there's Saul Steinberg, of course, everybody knows him, who he was sharing his inner world with us, collaborating with us on his inner world. Less of a collaboration in his case. He was more just showing us what was inside his brain. So I wanted to say that the cartoon is like the innovations of a cartoon comes through the artist. The collaboration between the world and the cartoonist is a thing that creates a new innovation every time the artist creates something new by reacting to her environment. Now, you're like wondering, what the heck is that? I wanted to show you my trajectory with my cartoons. This was the first cartoon I sold to the New Yorker, and I was ecstatic to sell this, but ultimately I found it to be an unsuccessful cartoon for me because most people who saw this didn't understand it and didn't get it, didn't like it, and didn't, and I didn't feel that connection that I needed with the viewer. It's actually Cézanne's three elements: the cone, the sphere, and the cylinder, and a television set. So that's the joke. But it was my first cartoon, and it was kind of embarrassing. And anyway, so I started adapting my cartoons to my sensibility and to what I was feeling from the viewership and from my audience. And this is a sequential one of a man walking down the street saying to himself, maybe I don't pet dogs enough. And he goes back and he pets the dog. So it's a little bit more successful for me in communicating with my viewership. And this is an example of one of mine. Just a fun cartoon, communicating with people about life. And This is one I wanted to show you because it's an example of my feeling a sense in the country. This was in the late 80s, early 90s, of a new sensibility after the second wave of feminism, of women coming out and speaking more openly and being much funnier, actually. And I was feeling the same thing myself. So this is an example of a reflection of what was going on in the time and my work. And this was done during the Iraq War, when I sensed that there were people protesting the war that didn't really mean it. They just thought it was the thing to do. And then finally, this one I did after 9/11, and I felt very... After 9/11, I had a lot of trouble doing cartoons. I was thinking of giving it up and going into teaching. And then I did this cartoon, and they bought it. And I feel like it put me back on the path to drawing cartoons, because I felt positive about being able to contribute something to the conversation, the global conversation. So after 9/11, a lot of things obviously have changed, but among them is the internet. And how do you take a traditional form like what I do, cartoon, and adapt it to what's going on now with Medium and with social media and whatnot? So I'm going to show you a few things that I've been doing with my work to try to, through my sensibilities, through me, I create a new form. And this is an example of some video. I've been taping myself drawing. This particular one is just a minute long, and I do these, I hold the iPhone over my hand and just draw them, and they're meaningless. They really don't have much meaning, except they're communications with my audience. I'll draw these and then tweet them out, or I do even shorter ones on Vine and communicate with people that way. And it's a human connection. I'm connecting with people, showing them my hand drawing, and I feel it's really satisfying for me, and I find other people like it as well. I'm learning animation too, which I'm excited about. Oh, there's the sound of a pencil. So, thank you. I also do full, thank you. Thank you. I also do full cartoons as well. Then I've been doing what I call tweet drawing, and maybe some of you on Twitter have seen me doing live tweet drawings while I'm here. I draw something that I'm watching on television, in this case, and I draw it on my iPad, and I tweet it out, and then sometimes make a snide remark in the tweet, and people seem to really enjoy it. I did the Olympics, and then the New Yorker will gather these on their website, and let's see, Oscars. The New Yorker will gather these on their website, and then you can see them the next day. Do you remember Pharrell and his hat? Did you guys watch the Grammys? It's really fun. It's like a nationwide conversation. And then the Emmys, most recently, Sarah Silverman. And then, I don't know if you guys saw the president's press conference a couple weeks ago. I just happened to turn on the television. I wasn't quite aware he was doing this, and I saw the suit, and I thought, why is he wearing that suit? And I got out my iPad, and I quickly drew it, and I was sort of halfway listening to what he was saying, but I was figuring out why was he wearing, and it turned out everybody else was doing the same thing. The Twitterverse was obsessed with, why is the president wearing this summer suit? And it looks so ill-fitting. Anyway, nobody was paying attention to the very serious things he was talking about. So the last thing I wanted to quickly mention is using the traditional form of a New Yorker cartoon, my style, to do something else, to move it into another realm. And women's rights is something that's very important to me. Oops. Yeah. So I've been adapting my cartoons, not for the New Yorker necessarily, although I'm trying to get some of these in the magazine, but this is mostly for social media and a couple of sites that I work for, drawing cartoons that reflect what's going on with women in the United States, but also around the globe. Because I feel like women's issues are, the politics of being a woman is a daily thing. It's not necessarily about legislation. It's about living our lives daily, and the cartoon reflects that. So if I can use my form to reflect what's going on and communicate with other people about this, then it's getting another use, getting another way to speak. I mean, you laugh, but this is unfortunately true. One of my favorite targets is the media. This was after Marissa Mayer was hired as CEO. And this was trying to communicate to generational differences. And trying to communicate across borders. And finally, I've been pushing myself to be even more stronger in my opinions and voice on social media. And I did this recently about the football abuse. That's the thing about the web, about the internet, is you can push your boundaries a little bit more. So, back to my original thought was that it's about communication. If we can collaborate and communicate and work together and share our ideas and listen to each other, then I hope that we can do that and make the world a much better place and laugh about it too. Thank you very much.